Hey, how are you doing? I'm Max, and in this video I'm going to show you the Kontakt Factory Library, a collection of instruments that you get for free if you buy Kontakt 7 or you already own it. I know choosing libraries, especially your first ones, can be a really tough decision, so if you're a composer and want to start writing music, or you're like me and you already own Kontakt and use it all the time, I hope this video will help you out and inspire you. If you enjoy it, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future videos. The library is about 40 gigabytes in size, and I think one of the strengths is the variety of sounds you get, and there is usually some kind of instrument for every genre you'd want to do. However, at the same time, it is one of its weaknesses as well, because most of the instruments are probably not as detailed or flexible as you might want, so a lot of times you just have to work with what you've got without too much room for customization. To show you a little bit what you can do with the sounds in this library, I have taken 3 scenes from video games and written some music for them in different styles: electronic, band music and orchestral. I haven't applied any effects or other processing, so all the sounds you'll hear are straight out of the box. So the first genre I did was electronic music, and before we take a look at the gameplay clip, I wanted to show you what sounds I had to choose from. In the beats, synth and vintage folders, you can find all the different presets, and with over 600, this is definitely the largest section in the factory library. I'm going to skip through some of them so you get an idea. The drum kits in this library are all pretty much set up the same way, so that you can either choose to play and program the drum grooves yourself, or choose from a pretty big library of grooves. There's a bunch of grooves for every kit in this library, but you can basically use every groove with every drum kit. Doesn't really matter. If you found something you like, you can also choose to drag and drop it into your session on a MIDI track and then make changes to the MIDI afterwards. You also get a bunch of effects that you can use to manipulate your drums further. The interface for the band drum kits looks a little bit different. Down here you get to choose your grooves. They're all the same grooves. And the effects section is up here. You can toggle it on and off, and there's a bunch of effects that you don't get with the electronic drums. Synths and vintage look pretty similar at first glance, but some of the controls differ a little bit. For example, you get a fat button for the vintage sounds that just adds a little bit of chorus and makes the sound a little bit fatter. Again, you also get an effects section up here, which I think is the same for all the instruments in this library, except the electronic drums, as we saw earlier. Okay, now to see what I've written using these sounds, let's take a look at the first gameplay clip. Okay, so for the second scene, I used all kinds of acoustic and electronic instruments in a more pop-like band arrangement. You can find the presets for these instruments by going to the acoustic and band folders. And here you get everything from drum kits over acoustic guitars to Arabic flutes. And I was especially interested in the horn section to see if it was actually any useful. Again, I'm going to browse through some of the presets for you to hear the sounds. As I said already, I was especially interested in the horns from this library, and there is a bunch of instruments you get to choose from. However, these are all sustain patches, except the sections. If we load one up here, you can see you can choose between 4 different articulations. There is no legato for any of the instruments, so that is all we have to work with here. I have written a short arrangement for the horns that I'm going to play for you. First, every section by itself, and then everything together, so you can judge for yourself if you like the sound or not. I try to make it as dynamic, realistic, and interesting as possible by using all the different articulations this library has to offer. Another instrument worth mentioning is the acoustic strummed 12th string, which you play by triggering patterns. You can combine this also with a bunch of single hits and strokes to get really interesting rhythms and patterns. So with all these instruments combined, let's take a look at the second gameplay clip to see what I have come up with. Last but definitely not least, I have written some good old orchestral music for the third gameplay scene. In the orchestral folder you will find all the basic instruments like string sections, brass, woodwinds, as well as a selection of orchestral percussion. Also, the choir folder contains a bunch of basic patches for writing choir. As the sounds in here are all pretty much self-explanatory, I will skip the presets and go directly to my session to show you some of the instruments I've used. Okay, so the first instrument that I wanted to show you is the marimba that I've used. It is pretty straightforward. You get to choose how you want to control the dynamics. There is an effect that lets you harmonize the notes you're playing. You can choose a key and a scale, and if you play a note, it's going to give you a chord from that scale. Also, there is an effects panel like with all the other instruments, and the effects are pretty much the same as well. One thing that you'll notice is that even if I turn off the reverb here, the sound is still gonna be pretty wet. That is something that you're not gonna be able to change since there's no microphone positions that you can mix, so you're just gonna have to work with that. Another interesting one are the strings. Here, for example, the cello. So you get 4 articulations that you can choose from. I think this is basically the same for all the other orchestral instruments as well, but for woodwinds and brass, I think there is only sustains and staccato maybe, so it's pretty limited. Also, you can choose how you want to control the dynamics here as well. There is a legato button that you can push when you're on the sustains patch, but that doesn't actually do anything except it lets you play only one note at a time. So there is no true legato or anything like that in this library. However, you can change the fade in and fade out of the legato effect to change the sound up a little bit. So if I put this to mod wheel and turn up the fade out a little bit, this is what the cellos sound like. So when writing with these instruments, I didn't really try to achieve a super realistic sound, but instead went for a nice mood and an atmosphere. I also used some of the more exotic instruments from the library to get a little bit of flavor. So we're gonna listen to the third gameplay scene now and see what it sounds like. Okay, so I hope you got a good idea of what you get with this library. As I said before, I think the variety of sounds in here is really its main strength, and it just makes it a really good starting point for writing music. However, at the same time, the limitations are pretty obvious as soon as you try to get a little bit more out of the instruments, especially the lack of articulations for the orchestral instruments make them not really viable for advanced composition. But at that point you can always upgrade to a more versatile library, and the fact that this comes free with Kontakt, which I would recommend buying anyway, in my opinion more than makes up for its limitations. That is all for now. I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments what you think about this library. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.